The reunion with his ex-boyfriend, the one from the tumultuous breakup, was not something Caleb had factored into his college plans. Yet their Asher was in the top bunk. The silence in the dorm room was heavy enough to suffocate, broken only by the rustling of their two other roommates, who suddenly found their own unpacking intensely fascinating. Caleb had intended to feign ignorance, to treat Asher like any other stranger. Asher, however, had other plans. He announced to the room without a trace of shame that he had no clean underwear and expected Caleb to buy him some. Caleb froze. A nervous swallow was the only response he could manage. He tried to ignore the request, hoping the silence would be answer enough. It wasn't. Asher's head appeared over the edge of the top bunk, his expression one of playful disbelief. He began to question why Caleb wasn't answering, reminding him that given their history, such a small favor shouldn't be an issue. Before he could elaborate, Caleb shot up, his hand clamping over Asher's mouth. He shoved Asher back behind the privacy curtain of the bunk, following him in. He hissed, demanding to know what Asher thought he was doing. Asher simply raised an eyebrow, his fingers brushing away a damp strand of hair from Caleb's forehead. He explained coolly that he was staking his claim. He had seen the way Liam, their roommate from across the hall, had looked at Caleb. Liam had been kind, helping Caleb with his luggage on the way up, a simple gesture that had been witnessed by Asher and immediately interpreted as a threat. Caleb's voice was ice as he reminded Asher that it was none of his business. They were over. They were ex-boyfriends. That was the truth. They had broken up. The confession had come on the night of their high school graduation. Caleb had liked him too, so their getting together felt like the natural, inevitable conclusion. He had imagined a beautiful future, but the relationship imploded just before the start of college. The reason was starkly simple. Asher's possessiveness was suffocating. His jealousy was a hair trigger, set off by the slightest kindness shown to Caleb by a stranger. Each time, Caleb would have to exhaust himself coaxing Asher back from the brink. He had known Asher was possessive as a friend, but as a boyfriend, it escalated into something far more sinister. The breaking point had come one rainy night. Caleb, having missed a call while in the shower, called back to find that Asher had already run to his house and was standing drenched on his doorstep. The moment Caleb pulled him inside, the interrogation began. Asher demanded to know why Caleb hadn't answered, his voice tight with a frantic worry about what could have happened. Caleb tried to soothe him, explaining he had been showering. He promised to be more careful and urged Asher to take a hot shower himself before he caught a cold. But Asher was beyond reason. He demanded to know why Caleb hadn't messaged him before getting in the shower. His need for control had reached a point where he required a real-time log of Caleb's every action. That day, Caleb had spilled takeout on himself and, driven by his own meticulous nature, had immediately gone to wash up. It hadn't occurred to him to report it. He tried to explain while pushing Asher toward the bathroom. Later, collapsed on his bed, Caleb confronted the reality he'd been avoiding. Asher was sick. His parents, both career-obsessed, had left his upbringing to a series of nannies. This long-term neglect had twisted something inside him, fostering a pathological need to possess and control anything he cared about. Lost in thought, he didn't notice Asher emerge from the bathroom. Asher stood there for a long time before his voice cut through the silence, asking who Caleb was thinking about. Caleb's startled jump was all the proof Asher needed. He shoved Caleb down onto the bed, his voice a venomous whisper, demanding to know which man occupied his thoughts while Asher himself was right there. He listed off recent, innocent encounters as if they were capital crimes. He was completely unhinged. Caleb instinctively wrapped his arms around Asher, pulling his head to his chest and stroking his back in the familiar, calming rhythm. He whispered that he had been thinking of Asher. But Asher didn't believe him. His eyes were wild as he screamed that Caleb was lying. Then, he bit down hard on Caleb's neck, a sharp, punishing act of ownership. The rest of the night was a blur of pain and confusion. Caleb couldn't remember if he had cried, but he remembered seeing tears on Asher's face. It was Caleb who was in pain, yet Asher looked like the one who had been deeply wronged. It was then that Caleb understood the fundamental flaw in their dynamic. The problem had always been there, but he had believed it was manageable. Now he saw how wrong he was. Asher was lost in his own twisted logic, deaf to any explanation or plea. Caleb couldn't be the 24-hour surveillance subject Asher needed. The next day, he broke up with him. Asher had refused, crying and apologizing, promising he would change. He'd even tried to cook Caleb's favorite dish, searing steak, burning his hands in the process and still trying to smile through the pain. Overwhelmed, Caleb changed his number and flew to Europe for the summer, seeking distance and peace. Back in the dorm room, the memory faded. Caleb steadied himself and spoke with a cold finality. He told Asher that since he was clearly thinking straight again, he should stop doing things that could be misinterpreted. He wanted no interaction between them for the next 4 years. The words were harsh, and the playful smile vanished from Asher's face. Caleb braced himself for an outburst, but he was done placating him. As he moved to climb down from the bunk, a hand tightened around the back of his neck, and Asher pulled him into a kiss. Pinned against the ladder, Caleb couldn't fight back. When Asher finally released him, Caleb swore at him, demanding to know what was wrong with him. Asher's gaze fell, his long lashes hiding his expression. After a moment, his voice was barely a whisper. He said he was hurting. Just like that, Caleb's anger evaporated. He felt a familiar tightening in his chest and looked away, uncomfortable with his own reaction. He conceded that he would let it go this one time, but warned that if Asher ever pulled a stunt like that again, he would be furious for real. Without another glance, Caleb scrambled down the ladder. He knew Asher's power over him. The downcast eyes, the furrowed brow, the whisper of vulnerability. It was a combination that always made him forgive, completely and without reservation. After splashing water on his face in the bathroom and assessing his bruised lips, Caleb walked out to find Asher lounging on his freshly made bed, using his pillow. Asher casually asked if he was going to get dinner. Caleb ignored him, grabbing his phone and heading for the door. Asher was instantly on his feet, his long legs easily catching up. He chattered away as they walked, unbothered by Caleb's silence, content to hold a conversation with himself. Caleb finally stopped in an empty corner of the quad and turned on him, his voice low and sharp. He asked if Asher was incapable of understanding English. It was over, completely, and he needed Asher to stay away from him. Asher stood before him, his face a blank mask, his dark eyes fixed on Caleb. After a long, tense moment, he spoke. He said no. He told Caleb he couldn't do it. He admitted he was wrong and that he had started seeing a therapist and was on medication. He was trying to get better. He begged Caleb to wait for him, acknowledging how much he'd hurt him that night. He pleaded for another chance, for Caleb not to treat him with such coldness. Caleb still loved him, but he also knew they were fundamentally incompatible. Asher needed a partner who could offer constant reassurance, someone who could live entirely within his orbit. Caleb couldn't be that person. Their relationship had isolated him from his friends. Asher had always been there, his mood darkening whenever Caleb seemed too happy with someone else. He wouldn't make a scene in public, but he would make Caleb pay for it later. Sighing, Caleb looked at Asher directly. He pointed out that they weren't a good match, that in 1 month together, Asher had thrown a fit nearly 15 times. Even if he forgave him now, their relationship wouldn't last another month. He told Asher it was best to part ways amicably. Without waiting for a response, he pushed past Asher's pale, stricken face and walked away. Perhaps the message had finally sunk in. For a while, Asher kept his distance. Life settled into a peaceful rhythm. Then one afternoon, a new friend, Julian, threw a casual arm over Caleb's shoulder as they walked back from class. Caleb instinctively tensed, unaccustomed to such easy physical contact. It had taken him months to warm up to Asher's touch when they were first friends. As he was about to move Julian's hand, he saw Asher standing by a nearby railing. His expression was venomous, his eyes darting between Caleb and Julian. In the past, Asher would have stormed over and ripped Julian's hand away. But now, remembering Caleb's words, he remained frozen, his hands clenched into white-knuckled fists. He wasn't moving, but Caleb knew if he didn't intervene, Julian would pay for it later. Caleb immediately shook off Julian's arm and walked toward Asher. Asher didn't move, his dark eyes watching Caleb approach, a storm of suppressed rage swirling within them. Caleb stopped in front of him and, after taking a deep breath, explained that there was nothing going on with Julian. It was an accident, and he didn't want Asher to cause any trouble. Asher let out a cold, sharp laugh and turned to leave. Caleb immediately followed, knowing Asher too well. Silence meant the anger was still simmering. He called after him, trying to reason with him, insisting it wasn't what it looked like and that Asher had no right to hurt his friends over their past. Suddenly, a hand shot out and grabbed Caleb's wrist. Asher dragged him into a nearby janitor's closet, slamming him against the door and kissing him with a desperate, punishing force. Caleb struggled, but Asher held his head still. The kiss was an invasion, a furious attempt to purge the image of Julian from his mind. When Asher finally pulled back, Caleb was breathless. Asher's eyes were bloodshot, and he repeated Julian's name like a curse, his voice raw. He demanded to know how long it took for Caleb to let him get close, then spat that Julian was nothing, questioning how he had earned that intimacy so quickly. He grabbed Caleb's chin, his gaze icy, and asked if Caleb had fallen for him. The look in his eyes was terrifying, more so than ever before. Caleb knew with chilling certainty that if he said yes, Asher would destroy Julian. He quickly denied it, his voice shaking. He pleaded with Asher to calm down. He raised a hand to Asher's head, pressing it to his chest and stroking his back, falling back into the old, familiar routine. He whispered that it was nothing, that he shouldn't be angry, that he shouldn't be so impulsive. Asher's head remained buried in his chest. After a long moment, a muffled was the only reply. As the last of the evening light faded outside, Asher's body finally relaxed, but he didn't let go. Caleb tried to explain the situation with Julian again, unsure if anything had registered through the rage. He asked if Asher could promise not to bother him. Asher pretended not to hear. Caleb waited patiently, still holding him. Finally, Asher looked up, the red having receded from his eyes. He looked at Caleb intently and said that this time he was truly angry. If Caleb wanted him to leave Julian alone, he would have to give him something in return. Caleb's heart skipped a beat. He asked what Asher wanted. With a look of unnerving sincerity, Asher asked him to take him back. Caleb's lips tightened. He didn't answer. Asher's patience frayed, and his expression hardened again. He threatened to ruin Julian if Caleb didn't agree. Seeing the mania returning to his eyes, Caleb quickly touched his face, his voice softening. He tried to reason that the two things weren't related, that they just weren't a good. Asher cut him off, saying he didn't care if they were a good fit. He only wanted Caleb. Caleb sighed and told him not to force him. The bravado immediately drained from Asher. The memory of what he'd done the night before their breakup hung heavy in the air. He looked down at the floor and mumbled a new offer. He asked if Caleb would just let him sleep in his bed. He clarified that it would be just holding, nothing more. He confessed that he couldn't sleep without Caleb, that he hadn't slept properly in weeks. Caleb looked at the dark, bruised circles under Asher's eyes and knew it was the truth. His resolve crumbled. He agreed, but with a condition. If Asher tried anything, he would be kicked out. A flicker of joy lit up Asher's eyes as he quickly agreed. Back in the dorm, Asher wasted no time moving his bedding to Caleb's bunk, the clatter loud enough to announce their new arrangement to the entire floor. After showering, Caleb found Asher already lying in his bed. It wasn't even 8 o'clock. Asher patted the space beside him and invited Caleb to come to sleep. Caleb stared at him, exasperated. He reminded Asher that it was his bed, and secondly, it was far too early. Asher's smile faded. He propped himself up against the headboard and said softly that it had been so long since he'd had a good night's sleep. He asked if Caleb could please just have a little pity on him. It was emotional blackmail, pure and simple. Caleb glared at him, but his gaze met Asher's, and he saw the glint of unshed tears, the carefully constructed look of fragile vulnerability. He knew Asher was playing him, using the one tactic he had no defense against. And it worked. Every time. With a sigh of resignation, he said he would come to bed after he finished one more calculus problem. That satisfied Asher. By the time Caleb finished his work, it was only 9. When he pulled back the curtain, Asher was scrolling through his phone but immediately feigned a huge yawn. Caleb knew the problem hadn't taken that long. He had been stalling. Climbing into bed at 8 felt bizarre, especially with their roommates still awake below. But he also knew he couldn't make Asher wait too long. He settled into the space against the wall and told Asher to sleep if he was tired. Asher wrapped his arms around him, tucking his head against Caleb's shoulder, and murmured his agreement. And just like that, he was asleep. His breathing was even and deep. He wasn't faking. Caleb noticed Asher's legs were uncovered, kicked free of the blanket despite the cool air from the AC. He was always like that. Caleb started to sit up to pull the blanket over him, but the small movement caused Asher to jolt awake. He grabbed Caleb's wrist, his face taut with alarm and a flicker of panic. He asked where Caleb was going, his voice accusing, reminding him of his promise. Caleb pointed to Asher's exposed legs, explaining that he was just covering him so he wouldn't get cold. He added that he had promised to stay, and he wouldn't leave. Asher's grip loosened. He watched Caleb arrange the blanket, then immediately pulled him back into an embrace, tighter than before. Caleb shifted uncomfortably, and Asher's arms reflexively constricted, making it hard to breathe. Caleb had to pat his arm and ask him to loosen up. Asher relaxed his hold fractionally. Caleb had to ask again, explaining that he couldn't breathe. With each request, Asher would ease up just a little more. Finally, when Caleb could breathe again, he tried to adjust his position, and instantly, Asher's arms tightened again. Frustrated, Caleb turned to face him. Asher seemed to realize his own overreaction and loosened his grip once more. Caleb sighed, took one of Asher's hands, and laced their fingers together. He asked if that was enough for Asher to feel secure and finally sleep. Asher looked down at their joined hands and nodded. Caleb didn't turn away again. He told Asher to close his eyes and rest, reassuring him one last time that he wouldn't go anywhere. Asher finally slept, but Caleb lay awake for a long time, a knot of worry in his stomach. He thought Asher was getting help, but his illness seemed to be getting worse, not better. The next morning, Caleb was woken by the sensation of being watched. A heavy, intense gaze was fixed on him. He opened his eyes to find Asher propped on his elbow, staring as if terrified Caleb might vanish. Their hands were still locked together. Caleb quietly said he needed to use the bathroom. Asher reluctantly let go. When Caleb returned, Asher was up. They got ready and went to breakfast together. Finally, Caleb couldn't hold it in any longer. He asked Asher if he had been taking his medication on schedule. Asher seemed surprised by the question but nodded obediently. Caleb pressed further, asking if his therapist was reliable, professional, experienced. A wide grin spread across Asher's face. He asked if Caleb was worried about him. His eyes were sparkling. Seeing his delight, Caleb decided to lean into it. He admitted that he was. Asher's smile grew even wider. Still, Caleb felt a persistent unease. He suggested that he should go with Asher to his next appointment. Asher's expression shifted. He stared at Caleb for a long moment, his mind clearly working. Then, a mischievous glint appeared in his eye. He leaned in close and proposed a deal. A real kiss with tongue, and he would let Caleb come with him. Caleb stared back at him. He knew Asher was saying it precisely because he knew Caleb would refuse. It was a deflection. He didn't want Caleb to know the truth about his condition. A dull ache started in Caleb's chest. They were only exes after all. He had no right to demand full transparency. Still, the feeling of being shut out was frustrating. He pushed Asher away and told him to do whatever he wanted. That afternoon, while Asher was at his appointment, Caleb got a text from Mason, his best friend from high school before Asher had transferred in. Mason invited him out, wanting to introduce his girlfriend. Their friendship had faded after Asher's arrival, and Caleb only learned why after the breakup when he ran into Mason in Europe. Mason had confessed that Asher had threatened him to stay away from Caleb. The memory of Asher's terrifying gaze was still vivid for him. Caleb figured he had nothing better to do and agreed. He instinctively opened his chat with Asher to let him know where he was going, but then he paused. During their separation, he had developed a habit of messaging Asher's old number, chronicling his day as if they were still together. He had changed his own number to break that habit. He deleted the half-typed message. Asher would be at the therapist for hours. He could leave Mason's early. There was no need to report his movements to his ex. The plan went sideways immediately. Caleb arrived at the downtown bar to find Mason already drunk, his girlfriend having just broken up with him. Caleb did what any good friend would do. He started drinking with him. Caleb could hold his liquor, but Mason could not. After a series of slurred, heartbreaking karaoke songs, Mason threw up all over Caleb's shirt. Caleb's obsessive cleanliness kicked in. He got them a room at the nearest hotel and ordered some clean clothes through a delivery app before rushing into the shower. While he was in there, his phone rang. It was Asher. His tone was clipped. He asked where Caleb was. Knowing Asher was still supposed to be at his appointment, Caleb lied without hesitation, saying he was in the dorm. A few seconds of charged silence passed before Asher spoke again, his voice even colder. He asked if he was sure. Caleb confirmed the lie. Asher let out a chilling laugh and hung up. Caleb knew he was angry but couldn't understand how he could possibly know he was lying. Just then, there was a knock at the hotel room door. Caleb, wrapped in a towel, came out of the bathroom to see a stumbling Mason already opening it. Before Caleb could stop him, the door flew open and Asher stormed in, his face a mask of pure rage. He swung a punch that sent Mason reeling. He snarled that no one touched what was his. Caleb lunged forward, wrapping his arms around Asher's waist and yelling at Mason to get out. Asher looked like he was capable of murder. But as Mason scrambled away, Asher's fury redirected. He grabbed Caleb's jaw, his eyes burning. He accused Caleb of protecting him. He wasn't thinking straight. He threw Caleb onto the bed with bruising force, the impact making Caleb's head spin. Before he could recover, Asher was on top of him, tearing at his towel, his voice a hoarse, repetitive roar. He demanded to know where Mason had touched him. He was completely out of control. He frantically checked every inch of Caleb's body, his hands rough, only calming slightly when he found no marks. Then his crazed, possessive gaze landed on Caleb's lips. He scrubbed at them brutally, asking if Mason had touched them, not waiting for an answer before his mouth crushed down on Caleb's. It was a deep, punishing kiss meant to erase any trace of another person. Caleb choked for air, tears streaming down his face, but Asher was relentless. The sudden ring of a phone cut through the violence. It was the delivery driver. As Caleb reached for it, Asher snatched the phone and hurled it against the wall. He lowered his head, his lips moving down Caleb's neck. Finally able to breathe, Caleb gasped Asher's name, begging him to calm down, trying to get him to listen. But Asher's lips stopped at his collarbone. He buried his face in Caleb's neck, and his entire body began to tremble violently. Caleb could hear him muttering under his breath, a desperate, broken mantra. He couldn't do this, Caleb would leave him again. It would hurt Caleb, he would be alone again. A wave of sorrow washed over Caleb, sharp and painful. This wasn't just rage. It was terror. He immediately sat up, pulling Asher into his arms. He reassured him, his voice soft, telling him he hadn't been with anyone else, that he was Asher's, that Asher had already checked. He kissed Asher's lips, his eyelids, his jaw, his hands stroking his back over and over. He begged Asher to look at him, to calm down, promising he wouldn't leave him. Asher's body continued to shake, his eyes vacant. Caleb held him tighter, whispering how much he loved him, that he only loved him, begging him not to be angry. Slowly, a flicker of awareness returned to Asher's eyes. Just as Caleb felt he was getting through, a sharp knock came at the door, followed by a voice. A hotel employee. Asher immediately tensed, rolling over to cover them both with the duvet. The staff member, likely alerted by the delivery driver, asked if everything was all right, if they needed security. Asher must have thought it was Mason. His muscles went rigid, ready for another fight. Thinking fast, Caleb called out that it was fine, that it was just his boyfriend and a misunderstanding, he could handle himself. At the word boyfriend, all the tension drained out of Asher. Once the employee left, Caleb sat up, straddling Asher's lap. He cupped Asher's face, pulling his head against his chest. He asked gently if his baby was ready to listen to his explanation now. Asher gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. Caleb explained everything, every detail, admitting he was wrong to lie but had only done so to prevent this exact meltdown. He promised it wouldn't happen again. He promised to report his whereabouts, who he was with from now on. Asher's replies were quiet, wounded mumbles. Finally, Caleb lifted his face and asked what was still wrong. Asher looked at him, then quickly looked away, his voice small. He asked if Caleb had only called him his boyfriend to get rid of the staff member. Seeing his crestfallen expression, Caleb leaned in and kissed him softly. He said it wasn't for the staff member. It was for Asher. He told him they should try again. Asher's head snapped up, his eyes wide with disbelief. Caleb nodded. He said they should get back together. He couldn't stand to see Asher in such a state, lost and terrified. The pain in his heart was unbearable. If Asher's possessiveness was the illness, then Caleb would be the cure. He would tell him he loved him every day. He would teach him how to love and be loved. As he was thinking this, Asher gently took his chin. He looked into Caleb's eyes and kissed him with a solemn reverence. He promised he would get better, that he was going to his appointments. He asked that the next time he lost his temper, Caleb could hit him, scream at him, but never ignore him, never disappear again. Caleb promised. He insisted Asher apologize to Mason. It was the right thing to do. In a quiet corner of a campus cafe, Mason huddled nervously until Asher went to the restroom. He asked if they were back together. When Caleb confirmed, Mason's eyes widened in disbelief. He reminded Caleb how strange it was that Asher knew exactly which hotel and which room they were in. Caleb knew what Mason was implying, a location tracker on his phone. He brushed it off, reframing it to sound less like Asher was hunting for an affair. But Mason was serious. He reminded Caleb of his own words, about how exhausting it was to manage Asher's emotions, how he had wanted to be free. Caleb stared into his coffee cup. He told Mason about a conversation he'd had with Asher's younger brother a few weeks ago. His voice was low. He explained that after the breakup, Asher had locked himself in his room, calling Caleb's disconnected number over and over. When his family finally broke the door down, they found him huddled in a corner, his arms covered in cuts he had made with a small knife. Caleb looked Mason in the eye. He couldn't watch Asher destroy himself. He couldn't risk a repeat of what happened at the hotel. Compared to losing Asher, everything else felt insignificant. Besides, he was getting help. Things were getting better. Mason still looked worried, asking if Caleb wasn't afraid Asher might hurt him one day. Caleb thought of the hotel room, of how Asher, even in his rage, had managed to pull back at the last second. He smiled faintly and answered with certainty that he wouldn't. Mason sighed, accepting Caleb's decision and offering his support as a friend. Asher had been gone a long time. Caleb glanced at the slightly ajar restroom door. He knew Asher wasn't lost. He was standing just outside, listening. It was part of the reason Caleb had brought him here. Asher believed Caleb that nothing had happened with Mason, but he didn't trust that their friendship was innocent. He was terrified another fight would make Caleb leave again. Caleb felt a pang of guilt for using his unsuspecting friend. He pushed a small, gift-wrapped box across the table. It was an apology gift from him. Mason was confused, saying Asher had already paid for his medical bill. Caleb shook his head, explaining that it was his fault, too. Mason accepted it graciously. On the walk back to the dorm, Asher was silent. Caleb knew he was drowning in self-loathing for having doubted him. Caleb stepped in front of him, reached up, and kissed him. He smiled and said, "I love you, Asher." Asher stopped walking, his eyes turning red. After a long moment, he whispered that he was sorry. Caleb just smiled and ruffled his hair. He told him not to be, that they would take it slow. For Asher, when Caleb suggested coming to his therapy sessions, he was terrified. He was afraid the doctor would tell Caleb his condition had no real cure, that it could only be managed with medication. He was afraid Caleb would be disappointed and leave him again. But Caleb never brought it up again. Instead, he simply told Asher he loved him every day. He met all of Asher's needs, giving everything that was asked of him. Slowly, the sick, paranoid thoughts in Asher's mind began to quiet. He became calmer, more peaceful. Even his therapist was stunned by the rapid improvement, asking what had caused such a dramatic change. Asher's mind filled with a single image: Caleb. He had smiled and told the doctor it was love.